Firstly, I want to say how sorry I am that I cannot be at Christine's funeral today. She was a great friend of ours, and I feel honoured to be asked to share these few words here. I first knew Chris in about 1994, when she was brought by Ian and Denise Ward to the Sunday morning service at Central Hall. At that time, she was being cared for in a care home in West End, and she was brought to Central Hall in the church van. A nurse who attended Central Hall made out a rota of medically trained people who would be willing to sit with Chris and to help her with her needs during the service, and to just assure her that she had a friend with her during the meeting. Through being on the rota that this lady made, I really got to know Chris quite well and to understand her quirky ways. I remember an inter-church event one Sunday when we met at Netley on a beautiful warm day for a picnic. Chris thoroughly enjoys that day, especially the ice cream cornet bought from an ice cream van and the various people she met. She was a people person and loved chatting and sharing. After a few years of worshipping at Central Hall, Christine started attending James Street, where we met up once again, and the smaller congregation and friendly atmosphere were a real blessing and benefit for her. By now she was in a care home in Sherfield English, and the visits to church were a lot more costly for her, as she needed a special taxi to get her there. But she loved attending church on Sunday, and she was willing to pay the extra fare. Christine loved being outdoors, and I remember a very special Sunday when after the church service we all went off to the Victoria Country Park for a barbecue. She thoroughly enjoyed the occasion and being out in the fresh air with friends, and of course the ice cream treat. She somehow seemed a different person when out of doors, and she loved petting any dog she met. Another enjoyable time outdoors together was when we visited Chris one beautiful Sunday afternoon, and we were able to sit out on the veranda together, enjoying the view along with the activity supervisor and her dog and a small grandchild. Somehow Chris seemed different when out of her little room. I realised that being so far away from Southampton and her church friends, Christine felt quite cut off during the week and seemed not to have many visitors, as her family were all far away in Wales. So after talking with Matt, our pastor at that time, I arranged to write out a rota of different people who could meet Chris and visit her every 2 weeks or so. And she really appreciated that. An afternoon spent with Christine was not just sitting and chatting. Oh no, she always had a plan of action. After a quick cup of tea together, she would enlighten us of her plan for the afternoon. Christine was an artistic person and had an array of scrapbooks where she stuck photographs, holiday memories, cards and artwork. And I was always the cutter-outer, and Wolfgang, my husband, was a sticker. And Christine would make sure that everything was done neatly and precisely, right down to the last centimetre. And woe betide us if we did anything wrong. Christine also loved receiving and making phone calls, but this became difficult latterly because of her hearing deterioration. A regular phone call between Christine and our home would be on a Saturday in the early evening, when she would phone up and say, "What time's Dad's Army on today?" Because she loved Dad's Army. And then the next question, "And what time is Songs of Praise tomorrow?" She always liked listening to Premier Christian Radio too, and knew the presenters by name and corresponded with them, sometimes sending a gift for their work, to which she always received a personal reply. But Christine's greatest interest was Cliff Richard, of whom she was an ardent fan. She had pictures of Cliff around her room. I even think there was one of her actually with him, and she received a few letters signed by him too. She would ask for a Cliff Richard calendar every Christmas, and that was extremely hard to find, but someone always managed to get one for her. There was nothing clinical about a visit to Christine's room when she was at Waverley Lodge. Her love of teddy bears of all shapes and sizes was evident everywhere, and altogether there were well over 100. They were sitting mostly on 2 shelves in her small room. Some dressed up as policemen or soldiers, some in Scottish kilts, some as babies, and I even remember knitting a hooded cape for one of them. They were like her children, and she always took one of them with her into hospital. Chris must have loved her dad very much, and she often spoke of him and had a photo of him on her wall. During her final stay in hospital, she had a teddy bear with her which she called Dad. Sadly, Christine's mum is in a nursing home now, but Christine used to talk to her by phone at times when that was possible. Another love of Christine's was greetings cards, which she loved receiving and sending. Sometimes I helped her to make her own cards. She had lots of cards strung across her room to remind her of her friends who had sent them to her. Often during our visits, I used to write cards for her to send to various people, and I often was in the card shop in Portswood where I live to replenish her stock. She must have had a birthday book because she seemed to know all the dates of her friends' birthdays. She even would send get well cards to people who were ill. So, although she was so disabled that she had been looked after in a care home from the young age of 7, Chris had accepted her lot and didn't complain much. She loved Jesus, and whenever we visited her, the visit would end with a prayer. Her love for Jesus was so deep that she decided to be baptized, testifying as to how she had trusted in Jesus as her Saviour, and she wanted to live for him and serve him to the best of her ability. That was a great witness and challenge to everybody present at that meeting. I well remember that occasion in 2008 and how we all supported her. In conclusion, I would just like to mention my thanks to Jenny, the manager of the care home, and all the nurses and care assistants at Waverley Lodge, where Christine was latterly living. They were all so kind to her and cared for her so well.